Okay, hello class. So for our last discussion for this semester, we will be discussing about formula writing and nomenclature. Nomenclature meaning the naming of chemical compounds. I will try to make this as simple as we can so that hindi naman kayo masyadong mahirapan. So, chemical symbols are used to represent a particular element. They are letters derived from their English, Latin, or Greek names. For example, we have H for hydrogen, Li for lithium, Na for sodium. If you can see, if you have observed, Na is not even part of the name sodium. Saan kaya nanggaling siya? So, sodium is for the English name. We have Na derived from. Okay, so Na for sodium is stands for natrium, which is the Latin name for sodium. Kasi nga sabi dyan, they are letters derived from the English, Latin, or Greek names. So, hindi lang yung La yun. We have other examples like PB, which means plum boom, W for wolfram, Au for aurum, K for kalium, SB stibium, Cu cuprum, Ag for argentum, Sn for stannum, Fe for ferrum, Hg for hydrargyrum. So actually, these names are not the ones written on the periodic table, but these symbols are written on the periodic table of elements. You can take a look at your periodic tables para ma-identify nyo kung ano-ano ba yung mga elements or chemical symbols na yan. So, I'll give you some time to check on your periodic table of elements. Okay, so Na is for, if you can find it, it is for sodium. That's the English name. Pb is for lead. W is for tungsten. Au for gold. K for potassium. Sb for antimony. Cu for copper. Ag for silver. Sn for tin. Fe for iron, and Hg for mercury. So, those are your chemical symbols which can be found on your periodic table of elements. Okay, so next, we have chemical formula. So, this describes the identity and relative amounts of each element making up the compound through chemical symbols. So, dito natin makikita yung chemical formula. For example, water. What is the chemical formula for water? Since it's composed of 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen, the chemical formula is H2O, as we are all familiar with. So, this can be molecular chemical formula, empirical formula, and structural formula. So, first we will discuss about molecular formula. So, the chemical formula that indicates the actual number of each element in a given molecule. For example, we have methane here. So, as for the chemical formula of, molecular formula of methane, we have CH4. So, it means we have 1 carbon atom and 4 atoms of hydrogen. Okay, and then H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, we have 2 atoms of hydrogen and 2 atoms of oxygen. So, it means yung subscript dito na number, it represents the number of atoms present in that compound. Okay, for glucose, we have C6H12O6. Okay. Next, we have the empirical formula. So, we will compare it. First, we have again methane, CH4. And then, the empirical formula for hydrogen peroxide is HO. And then for glucose is CH2O. Paano nakukuha yung empirical formula? So, yung molecular formula is representing, it gives the exact number of atoms in a compound, while the empirical formula only gives um, the atoms and the ratio of that atom with the whole formula. For example, since this is CH4, if you divide this by 4, since 4 yung present, so hindi natin pwedeng i-divide yung C kasi wala naman siyang subscript na number. So, as is yung empirical formula niya. While, dito sa H2O2, kapag dinivide natin siya by 2, pareho, we will get 1. So, 1 atom of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. Basta walang nakalagay na number na subscript, it means the number of atom is 1. And then, for example, here in glucose, we have C6H12O6. If we divide this by 6, divide all of the subscript numbers by 6, we will get 1 atom of carbon. And 12 divided by 6 is 2. We have 2 atoms of hydrogen. 6 divided by 6 is 1 atom of oxygen. So, yung empirical formula, it gives the lowest ratio of elements in a given molecule. That's why we divide it dun sa least subscript number. Okay? Para makuha natin yung lowest ratio. So, empirical formula and molecular formula are the same for some compounds, but different for others. Like in the case of methane, we have the same empirical formula and molecular formula. While in hydrogen peroxide, magkaiba sila ng molecular formula and empirical formula, as well as with glucose in our examples. Okay? Next is the structural formula. This is a chemical formula showing the spatial orientation. Ano ba yung spatial orientation? Hindi yan yung spatial na spatial mommy, spatial kid. Spatial means, since this is the spelling S-P-A-T-I-A-L, it means kung ano yung orientation niya sa space. Kaya spatial yung tawag. So, it shows the spatial orientation of each element in a given molecule. For example, we have methane again. Letter A is the structural formula. Letter B is called a space-filling model. And letter C is a ball and stick model of methane. So, structural formula can be given in 3 different ways. We have structural, the space-filling model, and ball and stick model. The ball and stick model show the atoms as spheres and bonds. Ito yung spheres natin and bonds. As sticks, while a space-filling model depicts what the molecule would look like if the atoms were scaled up in size. So, ito medyo zoom out siya dito sa space-filling model. Kasi hindi na pinapakita yung mga bonds. Katulad dito sa ball and stick. Ball and stick model have the advantage of accurately representing the angles at which the atoms are attached to one another in the molecule kasi pinapakita niya yung mga bonds ng atoms sa isang compound. Okay? So, these are examples of structural formula. We have hydrogen, oxygen, carbon monoxide. Etong, kung mapapansin nyo, since both of these atoms are both hydrogen, magkamukha sila. So, kulay white yung color nila. Oxygen for red. And this one is carbon. This one is oxygen. So, we have carbon monoxide and then carbon dioxide. Ito yung structural formula of some compounds. Okay? So, take a moment to look at the pictures. Okay? So, meron tayong specific rules for elements and compounds sa paggawa ng chemical formula. So, for elements, we have monoatomic for solids. Ibig sabihin ng monoatomic ay single atom lang siya. Mono means one, diba? Monoatomic for solids and liquids and noble gases. So, this is iron is an example of a solid, mercury is a liquid, and helium is a noble gas. Ano ba yung mga noble gases natin? If you look at your periodic table of elements, siya yung nasa group 8, nasa pinakadulo, kahilera ng helium, dito sa pinakadulo ng periodic table of elements natin. So, we have helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, and radon. So, ito yung column na to of noble gases. These are called noble gases. Helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, and radon. So, ibig sabihin ng noble gases, they are actually non-reactive because they have already filled yung last level ng energy level ng atom nila. That's why they are considered to be non-reactive elements already. That's why they are noble. Okay, so that's why is monoatomic lang siya. Kasi parang katulad ng solids and liquids. While for gases which are not noble gases, so hindi yung mga gases na hindi kabilang dun sa group 8A or dun sa pinakadulo ng periodic table of elements, diatomic na siya. So, ibig sabihin, dalawa yung atoms niya palagi. So, for hydrogen gas, we have H2, oxygen gas, fluorine gas. Laging may 2 yan. Basta gases other than the noble gases. So, nitrogen gas, at saka iba pang gases natin, which makikita natin sila sa periodic table of elements natin. So, next, for compounds naman, their chemical formula depends on the oxidation numbers of the participating cations and anions. So, ito yung mga cations. Yung cations ay, as we have discussed, diba, na-discuss na natin yan, yung cations are positively charged elements, while the anions are negatively charged elements. Okay? So, dito makikita natin lahat na may positive, yung kulay blue ay kino-consider natin as cations. While these gases here are negatively charged and are considered to be anions. Ibig sabihin, since negative sila, mas malaki yung possibility nila na tumanggap ng electrons kasi negatively charged na sila. While yung cations, mas malaki yung possibility na magbigay ng electrons. That's why nagiging positively charged sila kasi nababawasan sila ng negative charge. Yung anions naman, since nadadagdagan sila ng negatively charged electrons, kaya sila negative. Okay, so these are the representative oxidation states of some elements. Minsan ito yung usually and commonly used elements. So this is the writing of a chemical formula. For example, we have water, we have hydrogen and oxygen. Dun sa table natin, kung makikita natin, hydrogen is positively charged with a +1 charge. Or oxidation state. While we have oxygen, we have -2. Kung makikita nyo dito, -2. This is +1. That's why, ang gagawin natin sa pag-write ng chemical formula, so this is yung mga oxidation states nila. Ito yung oxidation states nila. Iko-cross multiply lang natin sila. So, kapag kinross multiply natin sila, yung 2 mapupunta sa hydrogen, yung 1 sa oxygen, which is hindi na natin sinusulat sa chemical formula. It's understandable kapag walang number dito na subscript, ibig sabihin 1 siya. That's why kapag pinag-cross multiply natin siya, magiging H2O yung chemical formula natin for water. And then we have carbon dioxide, since carbon is positive 4 and oxygen is negative 2. Cross multiply natin siya. So we have C2O4 here. Okay, so now i-divide, kukuhanin natin yung lowest ratio ng chemical formula na yan. So divided by 2, this is C, which is 1 na hindi na sinusulat, and then oxygen is 2. Okay, so yan yung rules na pag-write sa chemical formula ng compounds. Okay, another example is ammonium hydroxide. Ammonium ion, this is an ammonium ion, and this whole ammonium ion, which is NH4, is charged with a positive 1 oxidation state. And then this hydroxide, the whole hydroxide ion is charged with a negative 1 oxidation state. So, kapag pinag-cross multiply siya, pareho lang siyang 1. So, it will retain NH4OH. Hindi na siya kailangan lagyan ng parenthesis. And then, for example, sa barium dichromate naman, since barium is positive 2, charged with positive 2 oxidation state, and the dichromate ion itself, this is the whole dichromate ion, and it is charged with a negative 2 oxidation state. So, pagka pinag-cross multiply natin siya, it will stay the same. So, barium, it will cancel out, and then we have dichromate. So, yun yung chemical formula niya. Okay? Medyo mahirap siya, but papasimplehan na lang natin sa exam nyo. I just want you to see kung paano yung pag-name ng chemical formulas. Just a hint, konting explanation lang para lang mabigyan kayo ng konting idea. Pero hindi ko naman kayo i-require na i-memorize nyo yan. Siguro yung mga simple lang. Okay? I will give more or less, yung isasama ko sa exam is yung isasama ko sa class activity nyo or sa classwork nyo. But you still have to pay attention dahil baka may mga isama ako doon sa exam para ma-review nyo ng mabuti. Okay? So, these are the most common monoatomic cations and anions. You can take a look at them. That's the table. And then another one. So, meron na tayo dyan yung mga combinations. We have hypochlorite, chlorite, chlorate, perchlorate, sulfate, hydrogen sulfate, okay, and others. Yan, nandiyan na yung hydroxide, yung ginamit natin kanina, cyanide, phosphate, hydrogen phosphate, and others. Just want you to see. Okay? Okay, now, we have an exercise problem. So, ito na yung sinasabi ko sa inyo, ibibigay ko sa inyo. Okay, na classwork nyo. Just like before. You have to fill in each intersection with the correct chemical formula. For example, this one. This is the intersection of calcium and chloride. Ano ba yung tamang chemical formula pag pinagsama yung calcium and chloride? Usually, kapag magna-naming tayo ng compounds, ang inuuna natin, or gumagawa tayo ng chemical formula, ang inuuna natin is yung cation. So, mauuna natin isulat yung cation. That is Ca. Okay. We have Ca. And siguro mas maganda isulat nyo muna sa scratch paper. We have positive 2. And then chlorine is negative 1. So, anong gagawin nyo dyan para magawa nyo yung chemical formula ng compound na yan? Diba sabi kanina, i-cross multiply sila yung mga superscripts. Kung ano yung superscript nung cation, yun yung magiging subscript ng anion natin. So, kapag pinag-cross natin sila, So, we have Ca, that would be 1. So, hindi na natin isusulat yon. And then, for chloride is 2. So, CaCl2. So, this is the correct chemical formula. Okay, so hindi na tayo pupunta sa naming ng compounds. Hanggang dito na lang tayo sa pag-write ng chemical formula. So, ang magiging answer nyo dito is, sa intersection na to is, CaCl2. Okay, so I will give you that example. And then, let's try this one. This intersection. Sige, dito na tayo sa dulo. Para medyo complex siya. So, una i-rate natin first is yung cation, 'di ba? Sabi ko, NH4, we have positive 1. And then, sulat natin yung anion natin, which is dichromate, Cr2O4. And this is charged negative 2. So, ano mangyayari dyan? Pagko-cross multiply natin, so for NH4, the whole NH4 ion will have a subscript of 2, which means meron tayong 2 atoms of ammonia or ammonium ion, which is like this. NH4, that is the whole ammonium ion. Lalagyan natin ng parenthesis siya para ma-distribute natin yung superscript. Magiging subscript niya na 2. And then, the dichromate will have a 1 subscript, which is hindi na natin isusulat, kaya hindi na natin siya ilalagay sa parenthesis. So, Cr2O4. This is chromate only pala, hindi siya dichromate. Okay, so, ammonium chromate. Ito yung chemical formula natin. Okay. So, sige, another one. Last example, and then kayo na yung mag-fill in. So, kapag sinagutan nyo to, isulat nyo pa rin yung mga examples na binigay natin, okay? Yun yung isasubmit nyo. Just take a picture of it, and send nyo na lang sa akin. Ay, no. I-ano pa rin natin sa Google Classroom, okay, as your classwork. Doon yung i-turn in yung picture nyo na may na-fill in nyo na yung table na to. So, this is another example. We have this intersection, SN, ito. Okay, SN, which is stanic or stannous. Depends kasi sa pag-name ng chemical compounds. Excuse me. So, this is positive 4. And then, your phosphate is PO4, and that is negative 3. So, kapag pinag-cross multiply nyo sila, ito magiging 3, and this is magiging 2. So, your resulting chemical formula will be SN3. Hindi nyo na pala siya kailangang ilagay sa parenthesis kasi yung SN is one element only. But PO4 is composed of 2 elements. So, kailangan mo siyang ilagay sa loob ng parenthesis. So, PO4, 2. Meron na siyang 2 kanina, di ba? 4 to pala, 4. SN is positive 4, PO4. PO4 subscript 4. Okay, so linawan natin. Sorry. SN3, and PO4, 4. So, yan yung answer dun sa intersection na yan. Okay, so I guess kaya nyo nasagutan yung iba. That would be your classwork for today's activity. And please turn it in para makita ko at ma-check ko yung mga answers nyo. Kahit picturean nyo na lang yung naisulat nyo. Okay, so that would be all for our discussions. next meeting, I will be giving your final exam. Please expect this type of examination as well as yung isang pina-fill in ko rin sa inyong table. Or tapos na tayo dun. Ito na pala. This table and the other terms that we have defined in this discussion, please review them. And yung sa laboratory safety procedures, kindly review them. And those, the performance of laboratory experiment or examination, and yung common glasswares and their uses, yung video na pinapanood ko sa inyo, yun yung part ng exam, ng final exam nyo. Okay? And siguro may maliligaw na mga galing sa mga previous exams natin. That's why you have to review more on what our finals will cover, and you have to still review yung mula umpisa natin. Okay? So, medyo dadalian lang natin yung exam. Okay? So, thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, just feel free to message me and I will do my best to answer your questions. Okay? So, ito yung classwork nyo, ha? Thank you and keep safe.